and welcome to Faith Matters. It's the show where we take a spiritual perspective on Merseyside life and culture. I'm Laura Pasterfield, and today we are here in the Tate, Liverpool, talking about Christian theology and art. So I'm here with my two guests. I've got Lily Nelson, a theology student, and Joe McClellan, who is an artist. Both are Christians. So I'd just like to start by welcoming you both.
Hello.
And also asking you if you could just introduce yourselves, maybe starting with Lily. Tell us a little bit about what you're studying and where you're at.
I'm currently a first year student studying theology and philosophy at Hope University.
Okay, and Joe?
Well, I'm an artist. I'm going through a spiritual transition, so I work at the Tate at the moment. So I'm just exploring the issues that we're talking about today through my art practice.
Excellent. And often when I speak to people about art, I find that quite a lot of people say, either art is kind of irrelevant, or art is important because it explores the beauty of the world. And I guess I often think that art is much more than that. So I was just wondering if you guys think, well, if you could just answer the question really, what do you think art is? Start with an easy one.
I think art can be anything that wants to communicate something. So it's not just for the aesthetic beauty. Sometimes when people come into a modern art gallery, they are a little bit baffled by, sometimes it can be quite radical or controversial or quite really, really abstract, but if it's trying to communicate something to the viewer, I think that's very important. It's not just a pretty painting, one on your wall. It's something a bit deeper. That's why I value art.
I think all artists are searching for answers to the human condition, and we're always questioning why we're here, basically. And I think that's what the platform of art and conceptual art can do for us and anybody who comes to view art, whatever religion you are anyway. It can help us understand ourselves a bit better.
Thank you, that's really helpful. So I guess in a way, maybe you've partly answered this, but what do you think makes good art or successful art? Maybe they're different things.
Yeah.
Okay, so good art in your opinion?
Well...
What's bad art? What's really bad?
Yeah.
And again, with something like that, it's quite subjective. So, sometimes people come into a modern art gallery and are really offended by something and they want to leave immediately, or,
But that still works, doesn't it?
If anything, and it's still done its job because you've left thinking about it, or confronting something that you wouldn't ordinarily be confronted with. So it's like safety in a way, because
still, it's always challenging people, but
sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad.
Yeah, it's got different roles within society as well. We've got art therapies, we've got art, community art that can give people skills and an aim, a positive focus, especially if you don't have the tools or means to keep coming to an art gallery or getting involved in other ways. And then you've got high-end art, and then you've got amateur art, which is just can be anything from just painting beautiful scenery and portraiture. So it's a massive, massive amount of scale.
It's quite nice because there's never a right or a wrong answer when it comes to what is good or bad art. So I think the most damaging thing you can do is, if a child draws something, they go, "Oh no, you haven't done this, that and the other." It's about freedom, and I know that when we've done workshops here, that particularly for Jackson Pollock, and the kids were allowed to just really get into the paints and express what they, there was no right or wrong answer, and I think that's important. And who's to say that's not good or bad art, but it's done something to the person who's created it. So
Thank you. I think that's really helpful. Actually, there's something about the subjectiveness of art, and also just the communication. Those two things. If they've done that, maybe that's something that's really working.
Yeah.
It reminds me actually quite when I used to sometimes teach kids to draw, and often and same with adults actually, they always say, "Oh, I can't do art, I can't do art," and it's because someone in their childhood has said, "Oh, that's rubbish," because they were trying so hard to get a likeness and they didn't achieve it.
Yeah,
and actually, art is so much more than that.
It's a very damaging thing to say to someone that because it's
it's an instinctual thing that every human does from the time they're very small. So just to say to somebody, don't do that, and it's part of your natural instinct to mark make as a form of communication before you can even speak sometimes. It's really, you've got to promote that, I think.
It's an important thing.
Would you say that there have been particular exhibitions, or you mentioned workshops as well, that you've done that you felt were really brilliant? I mean, because obviously if it is subjective, I guess there are certain things that you think are better than others, in just from a personal point of view.
Yeah. Well, should really mention Granby 4 Streets.
Turner Prize winners this year.
I mean, the work they've done, when I studied art at John Moores University, a lot of my work was about globalisation and also about art as a useful thing. So it sort of goes back to William Morris and the trade. So what they're doing in Granby is giving people tools to create things and helping them create things, but also they can build their own world around them, like Assemble, and they've helped the community build their own community essentially out of nothing. So
it's like art with a conscience, isn't it? I think and that is quite refreshing.
Totally.
It's about accessibility as well, because I know that when we've done workshops, we've done a Warhol workshop where there were adults with different abilities, different needs, and it was quite refreshing to take them up to see the Warhol show. It's very clean and repetitive pieces of artwork, and then we were able to make our own, and we were able to identify that they've done the process that Warhol's done, and it was a very simple process with the screen printer.
And experiential as well.
Again, and it was something that was really beneficial because it was accessible to people, and it was very quite simple to do, and again it was just reaching people at their level, and I think with the broad spectrum of what art is, you could go anywhere with it.
I think you've actually touched on a really interesting point there, because I think that, I guess to some extent there is a bit of maybe snobbery in art, and being accessible isn't always the first thing on maybe an artist's mind. And it was making me think a lot about kind of in church history. The church used to really pioneer art sort of in, before the Reformation, and at the point of the Reformation it was really kind of decided that art in churches, in places of worship, was idolatrous, and a lot of it was ripped out. There was a whitewashing of all the churches and that sort of thing. And I guess what at the root of that was this idea that there's a danger in worshipping the art and the artist rather than maybe God the Creator, which would be the Christian thinking. Do you ever see elements of that, kind of coming through in that snobbery or the elitism of art?
Yeah, I do, because there's a great artist called Thomas Hirschhorn who I studied at university, and he said there's always this thin line that artists are on. We need the art market, and we need that area of elitism, because if we didn't, our work would never get shown to the masses, and we wouldn't be able to express our opinion and our critique of the world. Because on the other hand, most artists who are making conceptual or work about humanitarian issues care about the world, they care about inequality and care about humans and human condition. So we're always on this thin line, like a sword edge. Like we sort of despise money and things like this, but on the other hand, if you look him up, he's amazing. He explains it much better than me, but he is brilliant. Yeah. So
we're not far off our commercial break, but Lily, I was wondering if you just wanted to add anything to that particular point about just on this idea that sometimes we can end up worshipping the art or the artist. Have you seen it going too far at any points?
Again, there's a thin line with why people come to see art, because sometimes there's celebrity attachment to it as well.
Yeah.
And we had a really interesting lecture on medieval relics and the idea of, you know, a relic would be a part of something to do with church history. It would have had a meaning and people going to see it, and maybe with the idea of something that's a big part of art history would, you know, people want to come and view it for themselves, or I'm not too sure worshipping is the right thing to do, but people want to come and buy merchandise of it. Right. They want to say they've seen it.
There's a commercial side to it.
There is a commercial side to it.
Okay, I think I'm going to have to stop you there for the minute because we need to go to our commercial break. So if you'd like to contact us, you're welcome to email us with any comments or suggestions on faithmatters@faithtvliverpool.com. Hope to see you after the break. Hello, welcome back to Faith Matters. I'm here today in the Tate Liverpool with Lily Nelson, a theology student, and I have here Joe McClellan, an artist. Just before the break, we were starting to think a bit about whether art can sometimes become, whether there's any grounding as to whether art can become idolatrous. And we were just thinking really about maybe sometimes the negative effects of art on faith, Christian faith. But I want us now to kind of look maybe more at the positives and see, perhaps starting with you, Joe, first. Could you describe how your faith informs your artwork?
Well, in the past, a lot of it was to do with my own sort of morality. Like I did a great big piece with 4 of the 10 commandments on. This was at college years ago. And I used to do things like 7 deadly sins and things like this. That was before I became a Christian anyway, so I was already sort of thinking about stuff like that. But later on, when I was doing about globalisation and humanitarian things, I was also working on a lot of equations about why we do things and why consumerism and things, we fill our lives up with all this other outside things that, you know, to try and satisfy something inside of us, because I believe that we're all built to worship something, which is God, what I believe. So in the end, you lose yourself and people start to like worship other things. But they don't really call it worship, they sort of just say, oh, I love it, or I'm obsessed about this and stuff like that.
So this was so you started to think about this idea of worship, but this was before you kind of became a Christian.
Yeah, and this is at uni. So.
You had quite a life-changing experience, didn't you? Can you share a little bit about that?
So after university, I got quite ill. Well, sort of at the end. Well, it felt like a near-death experience to me, but I basically had an encounter with God, and it brought me straight to Christianity. And for the past 5 years, I've been trying to work out where my art's going with it, or where I'm going with it. So, about a couple of months now, I'm just going to take some time out so that I can work on any conceptual ideas that I might have. But I'm studying iconography at the minute, and then I'm going to study. I've applied to do my masters at Hope Uni with Lily to do theology. So who knows what I'm going to create.
And so have you found the art a useful way of exploring this kind of encounter or this experience you had?
It was pretty difficult, actually, I have to be honest with you. Yeah, it was really difficult. If I made something that looked remotely religious, people would critique it or think I was being criticising the church, or things like that.
It's a shame that people think that, though.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm actually just painting it because I want to paint it, because that's what I feel like I've been told to paint. So, with the Superhuman exhibition we had, and with me painting of Jesus, and I felt really sad, like you say. I was like, I wanted to paint Jesus because I love Jesus, and they were like, what? Aren't you critiquing the church and religion and things? And I was like, no.
I'm just wondering as well, Lily, if you've experienced when you're studying theology, having had quite a creative background, being interested in photography, and then sort of coming to theology, have you found that studying theology has stifled your creativity, or maybe has it enabled it?
Not at all. I think with the broad subject area of theology, and you look of how much it informs a lot of art, music, whether that be positive or negative, I don't think that, as you say, I don't think, again, it's subjective what people are going to see as blasphemous or whichever. And I think if you painting something or you're creating something to question something, I don't think it would ever be seen as blasphemous, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, unless that's your intention.
Exactly, if that's your intention, you think fair enough, but
then that's also their free will to make that piece of art.
Again,
it's still should engage with that.
Exactly, and I think it's quite baffling when, as you say, you've done a painting of Jesus and then people are offended by it because of X, Y, and Z, and you think, well, no, I didn't mean that, or sometimes it's down to the individual when they look at it. But with my course, we've had opportunities to present on different texts, and I've presented onto pieces of artwork which have been quite challenging to.
Could you give us an example of one of those?
Well, one of the pieces were a sculpture called Christa by Edwina Sandys, and it was an image of a female Christ, and that came out in the 1970s when we had the female liberation movement and what have you. So it was presenting at that, and people are still offended by depicting Jesus as female, etc. But I think it's an interesting thing to explore because it opens up dialogue, and it informs ignorance in a lot of ways as well. But so the course isn't just
dense academia, but
it's not that
there's
dense
opportunity.
Academia. There's
to be
opportunity
creative.
to exactly.
I think it's a good point though that Christianity is still being explored and talked about within art and contemporary art, especially today, whether it be a positive or negative. People are still talking about it. People are still bringing it to light.
Yeah, and it's so important, whether you believe it or not. Theology, the Bible is important.
I guess this is drawing on to another question, really, which is about the difference, if you think there is one, between secular and religious art, because in some ways, I think you probably maybe could think of examples where contemporary sort of non-religious art has spoken to you about your faith. Are there examples of that you can think of where a current exhibition or something has opened up your eyes to something that you didn't know of God before?
The Mark Chagall exhibition was fun.
What was that? What kind of artwork is that?
Mark Chagall is a Jewish artist. And obviously, Old Testament. There was a lot of things I did not know about, like Judaism and his life story as well.
And there's a lot of symbolism he used that wasn't just...
there was a lot of spirituality in his symbolism that he used.
And there was Christian symbolism in that as well, because it was sort of...
the more you look, the more you find in this one's work. So that was fun.
But it's interesting, I think, that many artists, when you read the biographies, all have some sort of encounter with God at some point. Even Matisse said at the very last of his days, and he said, when I'm creating, that's when I feel closest to God, even though I don't believe in God. But that's what he said, and it's amazing to me, because you do go into a meditative state when you're creating, and you go into yourself, when you're communicating with what people used to call the divine intervention, when they created something, in the classical era. Now they call it like the genius. But artists connecting with that is a special thing, and people practicing art experience that all the time. So.
That's really helpful, actually, because I was just thinking, recently I was reflecting on how Grayson Perry said something that was creativity is mistakes, and that's certainly something I've brought with me into my life, into my faith. And I was thinking a lot about this idea that quite often artists, like you say, are exploring deeper questions of life. And just in the last couple of minutes, I was just wondering if there's anything you think that the church or that Christians could learn from exploring more art, maybe going to workshops or seeing exhibitions, anything that you would say that that you've learned or that you think others might be able to learn from art?
I think it's a great thing when a human being can see everybody's point of view. It's just a matter of perspective on the planet, isn't it?
Try not to be ignorant to what people want to communicate through art, because sometimes that baffles people, doesn't it? When they come off and come into particularly a modern art gallery and shut off, and they're coming in and offended. Why is that art? This, that. I think to take time to really reflect on the context of why something was made, maybe, or.
Wow. Well, I think we're going to end on that note. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks to Lily and to Joe. And you've been watching Faith Matters. Look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks for watching.